we play a game?
Why, yes, I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Pre-recorded from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for listening. Whether you're listening at Saturday at 1 o'clock on 96.5 FM The Answer, over the air in the Central Arkansas Little Rock Metro, or if you're listening online via the stream at 96.5fmtheanswer.com, or if you're listening via podcast or on Krypton Radio, KryptonRadio.com is SciFi for your Wi-Fi. Thanks so much for listening and hanging out. As always, got a great show for you today. Really looking forward to sharing this with you. Before we get into all that, I just want to make sure to go over some housekeeping notes here. First of all, this is a pre-recorded show. Normally, Shane Plays Radio is live when it first broadcasts, but due to the Thanksgiving weekend and due to the schedule of my guest, this is a pre-recorded show. So do not call in or try to tweet. You can if you want to, but I will not be able to respond live. Also, show notes for today's show are up at shaneplays.com. As always, that's ShanePlays.com. So you can get links on the news items or links on the guest and all that stuff if you want to know more, if you missed something. Show notes are always up at shaneplays.com. And last week's show is archived at shaneplays.com, where we talked with Chris Perkins of D&D about Volo's Guide to Monsters and D&D being inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame. Great show, and Chris was a great guest, as always. This show will go out as a podcast within a few days of the broadcast version, and that will go out on my blog at shaneplays.com. It'll go out on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. And as I mentioned earlier, we do broadcast a week delayed on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is SciFi for your Wi-Fi, KryptonRadio.com, and we broadcast on Saturdays and Mondays at 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific on Krypton Radio. So, with that being said, let's move into the show. And again, thank you for joining. Got a great show for you today. As always, I had the pleasure of talking with Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment about their upcoming Star Trek Adventures tabletop role-playing game. And by the way, I want to take a moment to thank Patreon supporter Garen Gillum for reaching out to me and recommending that I contact Chris and Modiphius and learn more about the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game and all of that cool stuff. And he invited me actually to be part of his playtest group, which I'm not sure if my schedule will allow, but I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thanks again, Garen. You also sent me a message one time saying that I have the best radio show on the planet. I appreciate that encouragement so much. I do this because I love it, but because I also know that other people out there love this kind of thing. Now, I got to talk with Chris for almost 2 hours, and obviously I can't broadcast the entire interview in an hour-long radio show, but keep an eye on the podcast because I will be releasing the full interview probably about a week down the road. So those of you that want to hear the whole thing, and there's a lot of really good stuff in there, can do so. Also, another note I want to mention, during the interview, we talk about that the playtest, the living playtest, should be starting any day now. It's out. I got a email on Thanksgiving Day that it's out and it's ready to go. So go sign up for the playtest, and you can start playing the quote-unquote beta version of this game right now. And now, on with the show. With Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment. And remember, the full version of this interview will be coming via the podcast probably about a week down the road or so. And also the living playtest that is discussed is now live. So go sign up right now. Go to Modiphius.com and sign up for the playtest. With no further ado, here's Chris Birch. Hi, folks. I'm joined by Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment that has several very cool role-playing game properties. Today we're going to be talking mainly about the cool new Star Trek Adventures role-playing game that's coming up that I know a lot of people are very interested in. but hopefully we'll learn a little bit more about Modiphius and Chris and all that along the way. So, Chris, welcome to Shane Plays.
Hey, thanks a lot for inviting me.
You're welcome. Oh man, I'm really glad to be talking to you. Tell us a little bit about Modiphius in general, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, it was started by me and my wife Rita just over 4 years ago now, and we had been working on some little PDFs called Acton Cthulhu, some adventures for Call of Cthulhu and Savage Worlds, which were inspired by me reading comics like Sergeant Rock and Weird War as a kid, and then discovering H.P. Lovecraft more recently. And so I had loved the idea of weird, strange creatures in World War II. And then when I read At the Mountains of Madness, I was like, wow, what if there were Nazis in Antarctica with this ancient base, ancient city? And then just everything unfolded from there in my head. And so we started creating, we went and did this first Kickstarter, and I'd been a fashion designer for 13 years and had been wanting to kind of move on because I literally had bought the T-shirt and been there a few times.
Been there, and so, literally designed and bought the T-shirt.
Yeah, and painted it pink and cut holes in it and sewn it back together and sold it for a profit and all of that. So, I just wanted to do something different, and I've always loved games. I grew up with D&D and Ogre and war games and all kinds of stuff. And I'd written Star Blazer Adventures, the old, the Fate SciFi RPG that was out kind of in the early 2000s with Cubicle 7. And so I thought, maybe we could do this as a business one day a week, and it would be just something fun as a diversion. But the Kickstarter we did was so ridiculously successful. We pulled in like over, at the time, $300,000.
Now that was for Acton Cthulhu?
Acton Cthulhu, yeah.
Okay.
For the whole role-playing line, it was like 11 books and miniatures and merchandise and T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. And that was really good. So I went full-time and we started a business, and then we picked up the rights for Mutant Chronicles, which was the reboot of the 1990s gaming world that had video games and RPGs and movies and comic books and novels and 3 board games and all of that. And so we rebooted the RPG and did another Kickstarter a year later, and then we picked up the rights for Conan and started working on the role-playing game for that, and Thunderbirds. We did our first board game with Matt Leacock. So it's kind of just grown and grown every year, and obviously
not only has it grown, but with some exciting properties there.
Obviously each one helps you get the next one.
Yeah.
So Star Trek wouldn't have happened if we hadn't have got a good track record of working with other brands and showing that we could work, be professional and do a good job and, prove that our quality was good. And Conan wouldn't have happened if we hadn't done a good job with Mutant Chronicles and so on. So it all contributes. That very first project. I remember doing our very, very first adventure, and we got a great designer and a great artist, great writer, and that led on and on and on and on. So it's everything you do. If you do a really good job, that's going to lead to another, an even better project.
So just I guess to go ahead and address these questions that people will have. When do you foresee the living playtest starting, and when do you see the game possibly actually being available to purchase?
So the good news is we've literally just last week had approval on all the materials for the playtest. So we're just waiting for them to approve our announcement, and we're going to go live. So it's literally, by the time people hear this, it could be a matter of days.
Fantastic.
And the first adventure's all good to go. There's more adventures all getting approved. We've got this great writer, Dayton Ward, who is award-winning, New York Times best-selling Star Trek author. It's 25 books to his name.
Oh, wow.
Who is helping coordinate the big storyline that we've got running behind the plot of the living campaign. And it's the first time a playtest has been a living campaign as well. Mm-hmm. So the people involved in all the crews, all the gaming groups out there, this is like a defining point in the game's history, because you're going to be involved in one of the biggest stories that we're creating. that's going to carry on as well. It doesn't just stop when the living campaign finishes. It's going to keep rolling into next year, and there'll be the first wave book that will be produced with all the final versions of the adventures that people have played through. And the other cool thing is there's 4 ships you can play on. So there's a Kirk era Constitution class ship, the Lexington, you can be on, but there's also 3 ships in the Next Generation era, an Akira class, which is more of a warship, a Galaxy class, which is a kind of everything, but it's going to have more and more of a mix of diplomacy, cultural missions, as well as conflict and science missions. And then there's an Intrepid class, which is like the Voyager ship, the Bellerophon, and that's more of a science, more science missions. So each, depending which ship you pick, you're going to have a different experience of the storyline as well.
Yeah.
So it's quite a huge undertaking, but I think it's really pay off.
Well,
because
it's
people
also
are going to have such an amazing time,
Well, it is an undertaking, but you're also showing respect to fans of the franchise by giving them multiple options and not just saying, okay, we know that people like different types of Trek, but our resources are limited, so the playtest, you're just going to be on a Constitution class Kirk era ship. The other stuff will come later in quote unquote. Whereas you're coming right out the gate with all these different options to let people play the type of Trek that they gravitate towards. So that's pretty impressive. Because a living playtest / campaign is challenging on its own, but then to give multiple options. I think I signed up for the Kirk era,
Cool.
but I think if I had my preference, I'd either do the Kirk era, because there is something very appealing about let's just go in phasers blazing and figure it out later. And even though Kirk wasn't always like that, but he was much more cowboy than later Star Trek.
Yeah. He definitely he definitely didn't worry too much about the rules.
Yeah.
When he was in.
Yeah, I mean, he would try diplomacy, but he had no problem going to guns if he needed to.
Yes,
And of course, he always wanted to get his shirt off and get sweaty and punch somebody. So, all right, and then and kiss the green chick. So, and then, but my other choice would be the Galaxy class with that nice blend of, exploration and diplomacy and combat, because that was one of the things I loved about the Next Generation series. It was like Star Trek, quote unquote, grew up a little bit. But they didn't. But they didn't leave, the combat behind and stuff like that. But you had Picard, who was the adult in the room, and then you had, Riker, who was supposed to be more like the Kirk class, or Kirk type character and stuff like that. Yeah. So, and I love, out of all of the Enterprises, the Galaxy class is my favorite. I love that ship. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's going to have a lot of love from people.
Yeah.
I mean, but by giving people the choice, there's lots of different flavors that people can have. And of course, the warship will still get a science mission. It will still get a cultural mission, but it's going to get more predominantly conflict style of missions. And it doesn't always mean it's shooting phasers at people. It might mean conflict in a broader sense. That might be on the ground more often. So there's lots of ways that could play out. And we've got a lot of really experienced writers from all 3 generations of the previous role-playing game, as well as new experienced writers who are all super Star Trek fans who've kind of got involved to help bring it to life.
So is there, with the living playtest, are you still accepting applications for that? Okay.
Still going. And even once we've launched, we're still going to keep inviting people in, because we just want people to play it and have fun and tell us what they think and give us feedback, because it's all useful. And we'll still be signing people up in the new year as well. I mean, at some point there'll be a cut-off, because really, the feedback's no longer any use, because we're, fast forwarding into the actual final writing stages and development. But, they'll be able to sign up for quite a while yet. And we've got Dragon Meet, which is a big UK event on the 3rd of December, which is one of the final chances for people to pick up the Kirk or Picard miniatures.
I saw those. I think I saw those on your Twitter and your website. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Very nice.
And they'll be in later sets as well of the miniatures that you'll have, because we're doing this whole range of miniatures alongside the role playing game. So of course, not everyone uses miniatures. Some people like using miniatures to show their placement. We are going to have tiles of Federation ships and Klingon ships and lost colonies. And if you flip them over, there'll be burning Federation ships or wrecked Klingon cruisers and stuff.
Nice. So that's going to come with the core set.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the actual core rulebook will include a chapter called Away Teams, which is basically a very stripped down version of the RPG rules, which lets you play quick, fun battles with Star Trek figures across the tiles. So let's say you and me, we're on our own for the gaming night because no one else could make it. And we're like, look, let's just have a quick game, and we won't bother with the RPG. You be the Klingons, I'll be the Federation crew. You try and capture Picard, and I'll hold you off. So you can just have like some fun encounters like that. And the other cool thing is, okay, let's remember that there is this split, and there are going to be away teams. And as we know in the shows, often something happens to the ship whilst the away team are on the planet, and there's like, how are we going to get back? And they've got to do this whilst the ship, fends off the Klingons or the Borg or whatever.
Right.
And what happens when, let's all remember those gaming moments when some people decide to go off in a different direction, and the GM has to spend time with them, and then he comes back to you, and then you're waiting, and then they've got to wait for you to do your bit. And it kind of, good GMs can manage that, but it can get a bit boring. So in Star Trek, you've got secondary characters. So when you and me go off on the away team, the rest of our gaming group have got secondary characters on the away team with us. So they get to do stuff whilst we're down on the ground having the encounters. And then when we have the scene where the Klingon, cruiser turns up, you and me have got secondary characters on the bridge with the rest of the gaming group.
That's an excellent way to approach it.
Yeah,
because
they're not as strong characters, but they can evolve over time as well.
Well, that's an excellent way to approach it, because it's the first time it's ever occurred to me. But Star Trek lends itself to where you have to split the party. But if you go by how most Star Trek episodes unfold. So that's there's always you need to stay back at the ship. I need you in the medic bay working on that. I need you in engineering, getting us more power. Spock, you're with me, so that's
everyone
really
gets to do cool stuff.
Yeah,
and what we're also trying to be very conscious of in the books and the guide is we want the GM to know how to make sure the girl who's playing the security officer goes home going, oh my God, I had such an amazing time. I was doing this and I was doing that.
Right.
And also making sure that the guy that's playing the medical officer is like, it was amazing. I was like the center of it all tonight.
Right.
And we want everyone to feel like they were the center of attention that night, that they got a starring role and their actions really mattered to them. And it's a two-way thing. It's both explaining to the players what your role is in the team, in the crew, and it's making sure the GM understands the importance of each of those roles and how to accentuate that within the gameplay and the plot.
The FASA Star Trek role-playing game is fondly remembered by a lot of people. Are there any? Do you have any personal love for that edition? Is there any nods or homages to that in yours, or is it a completely?
We have got people involved from all three editions on the design team, but we are going. We're telling a different type of story, or rather, we're talking about Star Trek in a different way. Whereas the previous editions of you've got the introduction to Starfleet and about the universe and creating characters and stuff.
So when it comes to, I know, you've mentioned you've got the original series era, you've got, the next generation era. Was there any, request from, first of all, who holds the licenses for I know that CBS and Paramount own like the TV and movie rights to Star Trek. Who did you work with to get the RPG rights?
Oh, it's CBS. So
Is it CBS?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, did they ask you to, we also want you to represent the J.J. Abrams timeline, or
No, they so we've got the rights to everything except the new films.
Okay.
So the new J.J. Abrams. It doesn't include the new shows, but I understand it's. I mean, it sounds like it's set. I mean, the ship that they've shown off looks very much like the ship that was proposed from the rebooted series.
Yeah.
So.
Well, from what I understand, we're talking about the Star Trek Discovery show that's coming in 2017. From what I understand, it's set in the prime timeline, but about 10 years before, but before the original series, is from what I understand. So, but you don't have the literal rights to that content.
No,
yet.
But of course, it's a bit like if someone said, "Oh, but I can't play the new films." Like, well, yeah, you can. You've got the Enterprise, you've got Kirk and Picard and everyone stopping you, because they've changed the timeline, but the Enterprise does what the Enterprise can do in the old series.
Right.
Phasers work as phasers.
Yeah, the technology's the same. It just looks different.
Exactly. I mean, who knows whether we'll be able to add the new series later on, but nothing is going to stop you from playing it, because you'll have, Starfleet technology at your hands in the book. And
one thing that, and there are people who don't like the JJ stuff. I acknowledge that. I'm not here to have that debate. I find it entertaining. They're entertaining Star Trek movies, and I go with it. I like to see Star Trek on the big screen. So, but they did it in a genius way. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. They did not eradicate the existing timeline. They created, that's genius. You get to have your cake and eat it too. I think that was a genius move.
Yeah, so. I mean, I like the new films. I'm not. I always like everyone's point of view, and the good thing about the new films is it's introducing a new generation to Star Trek in a new way. And it might not be the Star Trek some fans like. People might like different things about it. But at the end of the day, there's an audience for it, and that. Right. As soon as if you love those films, you're going to read novels. You're going to go, oh, maybe I'll watch Next Generation. Maybe you'll get to love that. Maybe you'll get to love the old series. And so it's just keeping things, alive and buzzing. And what do you think? Whatever you think about the story, it's I said, it created a different universe. And I did like the bit where he brought out the old picture of the old crew in the new series, and I think it was a nice point, obviously, because Nimoy had passed away during that year. So there's some nice touches. Well, and mad storyline, but at the end of the day, I love going to the movies, and I don't like picking. I will pick holes, but I still love to get the experience.
Well, that's kind of where I'm at on it. I wouldn't want that Trek to be my ongoing TV Trek, but if that's the only Trek we can get at the movies, bring it on. And sure. And I thought Beyond was pretty good. I actually kind of, because it had a little bit of the, I don't know, they got, more into the 5-year mission and all that. Baby, that's a whole nother, and there's people that Star Trek friends that I have, that they will not speak of it lest they froth with rage. So
yeah, I know exactly. There's always it's different. I mean, it's like games though. There are people who will not like our game system no matter what we say or do, and they're like, no, you're doing it all wrong. This is how you should be designing your game. And there are people that will not like the way we do it. Why can't you just do it like everyone else did it? And basically repeat what people have done before. And at the end of the day, there's you just have to get on and do what you love. Like I said, this industry is about passion, and if you're doing what you love and then just lead that way, I think people will get it.
Okay.
And there you go.
Yeah, I agree. You can't please everybody, but at the same time, that doesn't mean you want to try to exclude it. You try to make the best game you can. And then, I've kind of learned in life is like Amazon reviews, and I'll explain what I mean by this. You always throw out the highest review that praises you no matter what. And you always throw out the bottom review that hates you no matter what you do. And then you look at the rest, and because there's always going to be, and it sounds like I'm being dismissive of those opinions. I don't mean it that way. There's always going to be that one person who loves what you're doing no matter what. And then there's always
Yeah,
going to be that person that hates what you're doing no matter what. So you got to kind of look in the middle and see, were you successful with,
exactly.
the broad
But
range of.
the thing is, if there weren't those extremes, then
Yep.
you're probably not doing the right
Yeah.
project, because you want people to be passionate and care about something, because then they'll buy your
Right.
product. And yes,
Right.
there'll be people who won't buy it because of whatever reason.
Yeah.
But you want people to be so passionate about it so that there are a lot of people who will go, wow, I can't wait to get this. If people didn't care, then you're in trouble.
Well,
So,
then you get the gamer, and I love these gamers. I have them on my group, and I just want to hug them because I appreciate their passion. They'll be like, I hate this new Star Trek game. Every week when we play it, 5 hours a week, I just can't stand it. And every time that new book comes out, and I buy that new book, I just can't stand it. But yet they're still playing. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I'm talking about.
People
Yeah.
like to have an opinion, and you know, it's fine.
Yeah.
And I'll happily chat away with people who criticize our stuff, and we have people who don't like our stuff, and we have lots of people that love it. That's part of life,
Yeah. Okay, we've got to pause there for a moment, but never fear, we will be right back with more of Chris Birch and Modiphius Entertainment's new Star Trek Adventures role-playing game right after this short break on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. We now resume our interview with Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment about their new Star Trek Adventures tabletop role-playing game. Okay, so can you give us any insight into any mechanics that will be unique, or is this like what kind of, I don't know, dice system? Is it is it a dice pool? What kind of system mechanics are we looking at?
So it's using our 2d20 role-playing system, which was used in Mutant Chronicles, Infinity, Conan, and John Carter. It's been rewritten. We kind of re-engineer it from the base up every time. And effectively, you have a number of attributes, and you have a number of skills, and you take your attribute, add it to the skill, and you roll. You want to roll under that, equal or under that number, on two 20-sided dice. So you've got two chances to roll under, and so you might get no successes, you might get one success, you might get two successes, and you then spend the successes. Typically, you need one success to do something, unless it's more difficult. So, shooting in the rain is probably two successes. In the dark, three successes. Whilst you're jumping across a crevasse, four successes.
I see.
And you can get extra successes in a couple of ways. You can buy extra dice, up to 3 extra dice, by spending what in Conan is called Doom points. And those points go to the GM, and he can then use those points to power the special powers of NPCs, to trigger environmental changes, to bring in unplanned reinforcements, to do unusual things, to make the cavern start to collapse around you. So basically to turn up the heat on the players,
right,
in a fun way.
Right.
It's not about punishing the players.
Yeah, it
it's
sounds
about,
like a almost like a GM intrusion from the Cypher system. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
Yeah, it's kind of, a little
yeah.
bit like that. I'll tell you where the ideas came from. It was inspired partly by the GM intrusion in SciFi. It was inspired by the Doom pool in Marvel Heroic, and in kind of from some wargaming concepts as well. And it was just the idea that I want to bring the GM into the gameplay more,
right,
and to give them... Now, in Dungeons and Dragons, you could open the door and I can say, there's 1,000 orcs there, screw you.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it because I'm the GM, right?
Right, that's all there is to it.
And I could write that into my game of Star Trek.
Right. There's 1,000 Ferengi.
Yeah, if I'm an idiot, if it's a stupid GM. But so having the, let's call it Doom points for the moment. We haven't got a fixed name for Star Trek yet. But you will, let's say you're fighting some Ferengi in a collapsing science laboratory under an ancient ruin on a mysterious planet, and the teleport won't work, and you're in the middle of this battle, and you've just bought some extra dice because you really got to take down this. You want to make sure you get the extra successes to take down this this Ferengi sniper. Right. But like the GM's now building up this pool, and he's like, okay, guys, I'm just spending 5 to the building is starting to collapse now. To start with, it was a scene, like a unstable place, and there was rocks falling here and there. But now it's starting to collapse. Right. And now you've got to get out, and you've got to make, tests. It's all about it controls the GM. I can't just bring in 1,000 Ferengi because I've had a bad day at work, and I take it out on you guys. Because it's like, okay, well, I could spend 3 to bring in another squad, or I could do 5 to start the building collapsing, because that's going to be an interesting scene. It's there. It gives you this sort of formula. Now, I could write the scene with 1,000 in if I wanted to. It doesn't stop you doing kind of big, crazy stuff. The point is to generate drama, and it gives you. It's brilliant for new GMs because it gives them a framework to operate in. Right. But for existing GMs who've got a lot of experience, it's a really fun way of bringing them more into the gameplay. And it's completely about adding drama in a structured way to make the players' lives more fun. So you might be so you are seeing this growing pile of doom.
Right.
So something bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I really need to buy these extra dice because I've got to take down the sniper. Yeah. And everyone's like, it's going to be, okay, do it, because, we know. But there is this sense of impending danger. And then the GM then triggers the collapse of the building. it's like, okay, that's happening. And so it is great for building drama and tension. And a good GM can build tension without needing rules and counters. But this is a really, really clear way that something bad is going to happen.
Yeah, so the players see the mounting, right? I like that.
And we've had an argument that is too much of a metagame, but let's face it, know that your friend is a medic and has a 90% chance of curing a light wound, and I know that you're better with phasers because you get to re-roll a dice. So we're all playing a metagame anyway. But this is all, the GM constructs this. He doesn't just go, I'm going to spend it all and wipe you out, because the GM could do that anyway. It doesn't need a pool to let him wipe you out. The point is not to spend it all and stuff you and make you have just kill you all off. Point is to spend that and do fun things. It's like, so we even have a card deck which you draw and go, why don't you do this? Here's some fun ways to spend points in a action scene. So it's like, have you thought about a rockfall? Have you thought about, well, what if suddenly a geyser of hot steam erupted or lava exploded out from a crevasse? So what if suddenly a console exploded mysteriously and hurt the nearest person? So there's all sorts of things that you can do to introduce cool drama and fun stuff, and it's about adding great fun. It's tension, and it's there for the GM to use. It's not there to spend and punish the players. So it is. I mean, it's really fun. We've been playing Mutant Chronicles campaign for about 2 years, and we've moved on to Conan, and it kind of all uses the same system. And always I find that people are, it's to start with a little bit reticent about adding to the pool, but then they get into it, and then it's just a fun cycle. And then the other way you can get successes is we have 2 levels of skill. You have your skill level, but then you have your skill focus, which is your critical chance. So basically, I can spend points to increase my skill level, or I can spend points to increase my skill focus. So let's say my skill level might be 5. My skill focus is 0. But if I've got a 1 in skill focus, I get another success if I roll a 1, a bonus success. So if I've got a 1, a 2, or a 3 in skill focus, then suddenly I've got the chance of rolling between 1 and 4 successes from my skill test. So immediately it starts to get even more interesting, and that's how we do criticals. And then if you roll a 20, you have there's a consequence, and a consequence, you can roll a 20 on one dice, but a success on the other dice. So you've got that sort of sense of success at cost. And a consequence might be simply that you stepped out of cover when you're shooting your phaser to get the shot, but now you're revealed. Or you made a sound as you're trying to sneak down the corridor whilst you were unlocking the door. Or you've triggered a silent alarm. Or the GM can just take 2 doom points, whatever we're going to call them in Star Trek,
I personally, because Star Trek is an ongoing drama, and like you said, it's increased. I would call them drama points personally, but I know you got to figure that out. So
it's that. It's basically that is the core of the system. We've got these traits, and very roughly speaking, if the trait could help you in a situation, you're going to get a bonus. If it could hinder you in a situation, you're going to get a minus. And so that's roughly how they're going to work in a very, very simple way.
Okay, we've got to pause there for a moment, but never fear, we will be right back with more of Chris Birch and Modiphius Entertainment's new Star Trek Adventures role-playing game right after this short break on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love.
Some Goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located at 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you.
Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast. Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Troll Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions. Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trolllord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. We now resume our interview with Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment about their new Star Trek Adventures tabletop role-playing game. Now, when it comes to characters, is this a classless system? Is it career-based or?
We have a life path typically, so you can choose or you can roll dice to go through a life path, and you build the character. You find out, what sort of training they've had, and then you can choose the career you want. And so there is no kind of, okay, you're a fighter or you're a magic user or that kind of thing. It's very much, you've got more skill in science or security or whatever, and you might be better at shooting a phaser than you are reading a tricorder. So that would suggest that you're probably better in security. So but as you develop, you always have secondary skills. So you're good with security, but you're not bad. You're pretty good at operating the helm. So characters always have different abilities, and then we have our secondary characters who aren't as good, but you can develop them as well through experience points.
Are they sort of the red shirt / nurse chapel
potentially. Well, there are
yeoman Rand kind of thing? Or?
There are other crew, and we're still bouncing around ideas, but there is the potential to use crew to absorb damage for you. But there's a consequence to allowing that to happen as well. You can't just burn up your crew for no reason. And so that's one thing that we're looking at. And there is a consequence to breaking the Prime Directive. You can't just go around shooting every Klingon you meet and not expect a big ship to turn up and to be questioned over your actions. So the whole crew will have consequences. And you don't necessarily start on the bridge. I mean, like with the playtest, we're starting you as ensigns, cadets on a planet.
That's one of the things I was curious about. Later in the game, do you foresee that there will be players arguing over who gets to be the captain, or how do you? Are you doing anything in game wise other than making every position interesting to kind of help, foresee that?
Well, obviously we encourage to play in different levels of the game. You can play the bridge crew. You can play heads of departments. If you're going on an away team, someone has to be in command of the away team. But in Star Trek, you'll often read about how the captain is encouraged to listen to his senior department heads, because they know about that stuff better, more than he does. They know about the security of the ship better than he does. They have a better understanding. His role is to listen and then make a decision. But you're not supposed to have some lordly captain telling everyone what to do and not listen. You are supposed to be listening to your security player. Okay, what do you think we should do? Well, in this situation, I think we can do this, and he can make a roll to figure out the best process. And engineering are explaining, the problems they're facing and what the ship needs to do and what they can and can't do. And so, if a captain doesn't listen to the experts around him, he's not a very good captain. Right. So we're exploring structures for how it can work with the captain. If the GM wants to, they can play the captain and then just put players in interesting situations. One of the players can be the captain. Of course, if they act inappropriately, they can be demoted and removed by seniors. So there's a huge responsibility with being a captain as well, because any lost crew look bad on them, not the other department heads. So they face the music when the pressure builds.
Yeah, you mentioned something I had thought of, actually, I think would be interesting. And I'm not saying every game should be played like this, but it would be interesting that the GM is also the captain, and then that way that solves the issue. And, but then there's other people who want to sit in the chair and stuff. So anyway, a lot of possibilities there. Are there any, what people would consider core Star Trek races or technology or whatever that won't be in the core? Like, for example, like a race that people would expect to be in the core rules but aren't. For example, the Tholians.
Well, the honest answer is we don't know yet.
Okay.
But we obviously can't put every race in the core book, and we're gonna go with the real obvious races. Right. And even when I say that, we're still we're still discussing what we can fit in as a good cross section of different types of races that you can be, and that is representative of certainly the next generation and the classic era. There's the technology-wise, as I said, we can't put every ship in, but we're obviously going to have things like the Constitution class, the Galaxy class, Intrepid class, Akira, and some science ships and other things. And then as you pick up the other books, you're going to get, so we're doing division books. So there'll be a science division book, operations, etc. And each of those books will introduce more ships, flavored by that division, a very specific life path for that division that is more flavored. There will be lots more information on you playing a role in science division and what it means to be the science officer, how you can enjoy that role more, but also for the GM. So it's not like it's both a player and a GM's guide. So it will give the GM a lot more guidance on how to create interesting science missions, how to give really good starring kind of moments to science players, and everything's written within the world. It's not written like, hey, you're in a TV show. This is very much you are a captain or you are the crew of the ship.
In the world,
So
will there be a source book? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say those books expand the divisions, and then there's going to be later on there'll be a Klingon book. There's been a huge demand for that, and so you can actually play a Klingon crew and rock around the galaxy.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah. So there's already plans. I was going to ask, well, at any point will there be, rules and lore for playing non-Federation? Yeah. So.
There will be. Yes. So definitely in the Klingon book we'll introduce that. The main, obviously the division books will introduce more races. We then have quadrant books, so Alpha Quadrant, etc., that obviously massively expand on the sort of geography, and we're setting the whole game just before the Dominion War, so there's a lot of tension. It's a specific point in time.
Nice.
And of course you can play any time you want,
right?
But this is where we're drawing a line in the sand and going, this is where everything starts to happen, and there's a lot of cool stuff happening. Voyager, I believe, is just about to get lost. DS9 is happening. You've got the events of Nemesis, etc. So there's a lot going on in the universe, and it's a great point to go, right, this is what the galaxy looks like now. This is what's happening on all the worlds. These are the big plot lines. These are some great stories to follow. And then of course that's where we introduce in the quadrant books is the different races, so Vulcans, Romulans, etc. And then we'll start to introduce other playable characters. So, and of course, down the line you don't need to play a Federation ship. Maybe you play a Marquis ship, maybe you play a Klingon ship. So there'll be other experiences that will open up. But we're focusing on Starfleet to start with because that's what everyone really knows.
Yeah, well, I mean that is the core of Star Trek. There are, it goes off in other, but that is the core. Okay, so to sum up, living playtests is about, within days of starting. At some point down the road, the actual I'm going to buy the game will happen.
Yeah, it's February, in fact.
Oh, you've got a date. Okay. Do you have a price yet by any chance?
No. We're working on some pretty spectacular packages.
Okay, so definitely February. Price
and it's not a Kickstarter.
Right.
It's a pre-order that you can pre-order anytime from February onwards, and then it's going to deliver in August around Gen Con time.
Okay, so we've got the living playtest coming any day now. Where you can either play in the original series timeline or you can play Next Generation. You can either do combat or / diplomat. And it's not just combat. It's more like resolving tensions. Or you can do more scientific stuff. You can play different types of characters, different types of bridge crew. You can be an ensign. You can use a tricorder, you can use a phaser, you can use technological lingo, you can have political discussions disguised as science fiction. So it's basically, it sounds like Star Trek.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the one.
Fantastic. Any closing thoughts, before we wrap things up?
No, I just, I think it's what the whole idea with this is, having watched all those years of Star Trek, now is your chance to be in the captain's chair and to lead your crew or to be part of a crew and have your own 5-year mission. And I think, one of the exciting things is seeing how people are what they're going to do with the game, what sort of stories they're going to tell. So, and the playtest is a fantastic chance to try the game for free and discover if you like it.
Hey, that's it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you next week on Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love.
Admiral, wouldn't it be easier to just put an experienced crew back on the ship?
Galloping around the cosmos is a game for the young, Doctor.
This is Admiral Kirk. We tried it once your way, Khan. Are you game for a rematch?
No, Kirk. The game's not over.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.